So I think music really started to become a major part of my life in middle school. And this is when like listening to music, maybe it's different now, but it seemed like then in the 80s and late 70s that music was sort of your identity. And I really was a new wave girl for a while. And I, got my clothes from Survival Surplus downtown, and you dress like in black, and loved to listen to, I wasn't really the Cure, but it's Depeche Mode and Howard Jones and Thompson Twins. And my first ever concert was Frankie Goes to Hollywood at the Memorial Coliseum. Way into those guys, though I did not understand what they were talking about. And that love was like, me and my record player and my headphones on in my room. I have a twin sister, so I shared a room. So I was always trying to find a way to be alone or to be experiencing something separate. And music was that place. And then playing music, and I definitely found in piano that I could listen to a piece of music and then sort of figure out at least somewhat how to play it, and I would have fun doing that. So growing up playing some moody Depeche Mode songs on the piano was definitely a part of my parents' experience. Them trying to go to sleep, and I got some reprimands like, must you play loud, they didn't know it was Depeche Mode, but tunes on the piano while we're trying to sleep. And I didn't even think about it. I didn't even think about them. I was just thinking about, man, I think I figured the chords out to this tune. And I suppose that then sort of morphed in high school into, I got more into like a more alternative sort of style, like a very hippie life. Like I was very environmentally, I was vegetarian. I wore a lot of hippie clothes. My friends and I liked to play hacky sack and listen to the Dead. And though a lot of friends of mine were skaters and were into the Dead Kennedys, this was my, I liked all the music though I liked the Dead, and all those bands I find are in that group, like Hot Tuna and Allman Brothers and The Band. And I was learning. We had KGON here. That was my musical upbringing, was KGON. So got me into prog rock, so I was delving deep. In high school, as a classical pianist, I really loved like Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Genesis. Early Genesis, my friends thought I was freaky because I was listening to this music that was old, like the old Moody Blues records. Of course, all the Zeppelin. Fell in love with John Paul Jones's playing. Even then, I didn't realize that he was the bass player. I was like, God, I love the pianist from Led Zeppelin and the Stones. My sister had a great record collection, my older sister, and she had just a bunch of Stones records, and so I loved those records too, like Nicky Hopkins, and not knowing who these artists, who the pianists were, I just knew that I liked the sound of that. So, again, high school, lots of playing piano. I would buy songbooks, I'd buy Rush, Pink Floyd. A lot of it doesn't transfer well to piano because sometimes the guitar rock doesn't really sound good on piano, or the arrangements are really stupid. Like I've gotten way better at taking a song that's not piano based and making it sound okay than I was when I was 16. I thought in my mind like, oh, wouldn't it be great to be someone like Paul Simon or Peter Gabriel? Like I love Peter Gabriel, like how Peter Gabriel brings in like elements of world music into his music. I was like, oh, maybe I'll be, because I was like, I think I want to be like an ethnomusicologist, and then I want to bring world music to rock music like Peter Gabriel does, and I want to be on Peter's Real World label, and this stuff like that. But there really isn't a good ethnomusicology program. Well, there wasn't one at Oregon State where I went, and there could have been one at U of O, but I didn't get a scholarship at U of O, so I ended up going to Oregon State. But I really didn't think I was going to be in rock bands. And I had friends in bands. Like, there's a band called The Last Pariahs, which Stephanie might know about. There were guys from my school, and they used to play all the parties, and I sure loved that whole scene. I loved dancing and going to shows and going to the confetti club and, dancing and stuff like that. But I never thought I would be in a band. And maybe part of that is that I was a girl and didn't think that was a thing that you did. But maybe I thought about it. I mean, I definitely, at the time, was like, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to study music. I wasn't sure. Like, I ended up going to school actually for forestry because I was like, I wanted to save the trees. I went to Oregon State into the forestry department, and I realized that you had to learn a lot about forest management and take a lot of science classes. So both of those things made me switch to a music major, though I was a music minor before that. So yeah, in the 80s, when I was in high school, my friends and I were very, what we thought of as alternative, kind of hippie culture, kind of like a friend of mine was a designer, and she used to sell her dresses downtown at a cool like vintage shop where they would have her new dresses, but then the rest of it was vintage. Kind of by that place, Where's the Art? That used to be this cool, weird gallery that was downtown. Like, I liked that scene. Like, I go to Pioneer Square, and yeah, I like to look at vintage clothes. I wore very alternative stuff, no makeup, just very earthy. And I think for my ambitions for music, I didn't really see myself playing, or definitely not leading a band. I did think I'd like to be in a band, but I really can't, I probably didn't even think about it that much because there was no examples of a woman in a band that wasn't the lead singer, and I was not a great singer. Like, I'm not able to front a band like that. So you think of all the great, when you think about the great musicians of the 80s, the women musicians, I could just think of a bunch of great singers. I mean, Bonnie Raitt plays guitar great, but she's also this singer-songwriter. And I wasn't writing songs. I was trying to learn music theory and how to play with other people. So I think there wasn't any examples for me then. And because of the music I was into, which is more of the jam bandy, very male-oriented rock, I think maybe in the 90s, which was just coming around the corner, there was a Riot Grrrl movement, which I had friends involved in, but I wasn't really involved in that. So, and also, as I was saying before, I think I was really on a trajectory of like, no matter what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to college. So I didn't really, and I hadn't found a band. I had some musician friends that I'd play with, these three guys, we called them the Neighbor Boys, and there was drums, guitar, and bass, and then there was me. None of us sang. We all were like bedroom practicers who we'd learn our parts, and we tried to play them all together, and it was just a fail because none of us had played with other people before. And I think my patience and probably insecurity made it harder, you know? We weren't like, okay, let's try to simplify our parts. Maybe not try to play Rush for our first time playing a song. They didn't have School of Rock then, and certainly no music teachers that were going to teach you how to play rock music. I think it was more of like, you figure it out. This is a thing that you do on your own, and this is your rebellion. This isn't like, my mom's not going to pay for me to take rock music classes. So you kind of figure it out. And I hadn't figured it out, and I still wasn't able to improvise. I had to write my parts out and had a very specific kind of thing I could do, which wasn't very much. Though I was playing a lot of classical music, so my technique was getting better, and I was learning a lot of theory, but definitely not at the point where that I felt comfortable at all in the idea of being in a band. So yeah, I graduated high school in 1990 from Wilson High School. I'm from Portland. My family's from Oregon, so I haven't really lived anywhere else. So I went to Oregon State. Ended up being a music major there, classical music. I loved my teachers and all that, and had a great time. But freshman year, I was practicing in the practice room, and I heard this person playing like kind of folky piano, and I was like, who's that? And they had the door open, which is weird. Usually you shut your door. And I don't know, actually, I can't remember exactly how it happened, but I saw this guy playing piano, and it turns out, and I introduced myself, and I can't remember the exchange. I just remember being like, this guy's different. And I met this guy's name's Caleb Clotter, and he was a student at Oregon State, but not a music student. He was, I don't know what he was studying, but he would just come and practice in the practice rooms. We became friends that way, and he invited me over to his house to jam, and I had like never jammed before. Coinciding with this, like I bought a synthesizer in high school, and I'd been playing around with it, And so I had a little amp and a little synthesizer. And so I took that over to Caleb's, and he played some of his songs, and I was just like, he's like, well, it's the G chord, and I knew what a G chord was. I'd be like, G, 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 G. Didn't know what to do, but I liked music, so I'd heard things, and so he helped me really figure out how to play in time with somebody and what I could add to like a rhythm guitar part. Another friend of mine named Ross, who was in a different scene, but he was kind of a skater guy. He was a great guitar player, and I'd met him through another friend, and he taught me how to play the blues scale, which blew my mind, because I like structure. So it was like, here's a scale you can use that'll make your music sound like rock music. And of course, playing this blues scale over Caleb's nice folky jams was like too much, but Caleb was very patient with me. He really was. And I'd meet over there once a week with him. And then I learned some of his songs, and he had a band with his growing up friend named Dave Andrews, and they called themselves Colobo. And it was just a duo, and they had a woman who was, so Dave went to Lewis and Clark, and Caleb and I were at Oregon State, and then Dave had met a woman named Chris, and I forget her last name, but she sang harmony, so they were kind of a trio with like a folk trio. CSN and Y style kind of songs. And so Caleb asked me to join them for a gig. So my first gig with them was in Eugene at a house party. And I'm surprised that I did it. I'm surprised that I had the confidence to do it, but I did. And they were lovely people. So that was helpful. Nice and kind of hippies, and felt like warm and safe. And so I remember my charts for that gig, and for many gigs after that, like if the song was like a bunch of C and then F, like say it's C, F, C, F, C, F the whole time, which a lot of these songs were, I'd write like for every beat, I'd write C, 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 F, 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 F. I'd be like C, 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 just like not feeling it yet, trusting myself. So that year, that was 1990, was super, and then into 91, was very, I grew a lot. And then I also learned a lot about playing live, not just musically, but what that entails, which means like, you have to get there early to set up the gear. And we had a PA, Dave and Caleb had a PA system, so I learned to set up a PA system. I had to learn what a DI box was, which is a converter from a 1/4-inch input to an XLR input to go into a soundboard. So learning curve like this, and no one in my music department had any knowledge of this world. Like this was important information that I hope they are adding to music programs today. But then, like if you want to play professionally, you have to learn how to work a PA system, and so that was great. So then I kind of became a member of the band. And slowly, that band grew to have a drummer and a bass player, and then an electric guitar player. So we became 7 people. But I think like one of my second gigs was in my backyard. We had a party in 1992 at my first house off campus. We built a stage, and Colobo played. It was Dave and Caleb and I. And it was a big party, like the cops came and all that. Like 25 years later, I figure out these stories connect. I was talking to Colin from the Decemberist, who I play with now. And he's like, yeah, I went to this house party across the street from my Uncle Paul. My Uncle Paul and his roommate Sterling. And I was like, Paul and Sterling were my neighbors. He's like, yeah, these hippies. We were like hanging out on the roof, and there was a hippie band playing in the backyard. And I'm like, was there 2 guys and a girl in that band? And it comes together that Colin, who was still in high school, who lived in Montana, had traveled to visit his uncle in Corvallis, who was my neighbor. And he was up on the roof for that. For my second show ever, Colin was at. But he doesn't remember the band. He was just like, I remember just a bunch of hippies, and it was super fun, and it was super cool to be there with the older kids. So that was random. So anyway, back to the 90s. So Colobo played a lot of shows. Like we played frat parties, we played bars. We played bars when I wasn't 21 yet. I remember having to stand outside during set break because I couldn't, if I was working, I could be in there, but I couldn't be there for set break. I kind of grew up in that scene. Mostly Portland, Eugene, Corvallis. And I think when you're in college, you have this interwebbed social system, like because your friends have gone to school. And so like we play UPS, University of Puget Sound in Tacoma, because we had friends that from high school that were there. And they told their friends. We play University of Washington and Bellingham, Olympia, at Evergreen State, Spokane. So Colobo, through all my college years, played gigs. And then after college in 94, most of us graduated that year, and we were just like, let's go on the road full time. And in the college times, besides doing Colobo music, I was doing a lot of classical music, jazz music. I was in the jazz band. I played a lot of gigs, like solo gigs, like at the coffee shop. And I was a church accompanist. I accompanied the choir. Kind of got put through the ringer a little bit at Oregon State because there was so few piano majors. And I was, at one point, the only one. So I thought I was like a musical slave. They were like, we need an accompanist for this and that and this. So I was working a lot for very little credits then, but it was good. So I work better when I'm busy. So that was good. So yeah, college gets done in 94. I'd gone to see the Grateful Dead and done all the sorts of fun stuff in that time. And Colobo starts going on the road full time. So I get a house back here in Portland with a couple college friends, and the rest of the band gets a house, another house somewhere else, and it was just like we were making it work, like touring enough to pay our rent, and I didn't have a car. We were just living very, very simple. Let's call it that. Like taking the bottles back was a big deal. Like we're gonna buy groceries this week because we're taking the bottles back. So that was that time. So that was the 90s. In Portland, which was a really interesting time. That's where I met a bunch of bands like Jerry Joseph and the Jack Mormons. Jerry had shifted from Little Women back to into the Jack Mormons. So whenever he would play acoustic shows, he'd invite me to play with them because he liked to have keys in his band. So I've been playing with Jerry for a long time. Other bands at that time were like Rubberneck, Five Fingers of Funk, Higher Ground. These are people in our scene, which is kind of the hippie scene. Whereas at the same time that was happening was bands like Dharma Bums and Young Fresh Fellows and Elliott Smith and Hazel and Pond, and all these bands were happening off my radar. Which is funny because now John Mullen from the Dharma Bums is one of my best friends, and it's like we talk about the same stuff and the same venues. I'm like, God, it's so weird. I never met you. But we were at the Belmont Inn and they were at the Satyricon, so things are different. Mostly just played with Colobo during that era. Didn't have a lot. I would play on some people's records, like a few things, but also recording was different. Like when you went to the studio, you recorded to tape, and it was really expensive. But I remember the early 90s with the band, and the mid-90s, like with the band being like my only focus. It was really fun. I mean, to tell you the truth, like because we were 7 people plus a sound engineer, so it was 8 of us. We were like a little family, and we had our staff, which was our friend Eric and our friend December, and our friend Tanya Podolsky were all working for us. We had a little thing happening. Like that was sort of a heyday of like, there was Nail Distribution, which was an independent music distribution that was right above our little office. We're all down at the town storage building, which the storage was in the middle and the outside was like loft offices. So it was called Siren Music. It was in there. And then above us was Nail. And I guess, they would like stick like little notes down between the floor and they'd talk to each other because people at Nail were friends because they were just they were distributing independent artists. There was a record store downtown called Locals Only that was down by Saturday Market, and they would sell tons of CDs. Like, we would replenish them with like 50 CDs a month or something. We were selling so many records. Like, I think Kolobo over the years sold like 100,000 records of, like, that's of all of our, whatever, 6 titles. But we were just ordering boxes of CDs. You know, it was like you'd go on tour, then we would do merch after the show, and we would just crush boxes of CDs. Like, you know, we would be selling 40, 50 a night off the stage. I was like, now I think back and I'm like, that's how we did it. I mean, the only reason how we did it was that besides the guarantees, and we lived cheap, and we had, like, fortunately, someone to help back us when we made our albums. We'd get loans from family, and then we would make the records and then pay them back. So we got to be our own record label. So we were definitely an indie band, though not sound-wise. We were an indie band that we did everything ourselves, including our booking agent was our manager. That was Eric. And then we had a publicist. We would get interns from PSU who were doing business and be like, can you come over here and just call a bunch of record stores and be like, do you have your Kolobo records yet? Let me send you 5 of them. This is like really grassroots stuff that helped us. We weren't like a beloved band by the critics. We were, you know, we were a happy-go-lucky hippie band with some really fun jams, and we appealed to a certain group of people, and so we were very successful in that way. Could never have been successful now because we were not. If you can't monetize your music, you can't do it. So we were living. We were paying our health insurance. I was getting health insurance through the band, like really cool. Musically, we were changing. Musically, like our bass player Nate began writing songs. Our singer Michelle was singing some lead songs, and I was able to stretch out. Caleb wrote a song that was like, I want you to write an intro. So I wrote this Bach fugue, not a Bach fugue, of course. I wrote like a Jenny fugue, a little intro. Got to stretch out my branches a little bit, and if we were at a festival, I'd jam with other people. We met the String Cheese Incident guys, and I used to, I've sat in with them a couple times and just kind of got really deeper into that scene. And as Kolobo started to grow, we had big ideas, maybe not me, but other band members that wanted to go. So we toured the whole U.S. a few times. And as soon as we do that, then you lose money because the further you get from home and the big markets, the less you make. Plus, we took a tour bus out, which was super expensive. So we ended up, I don't know if that really crushed us, but it made us be like, do we want to do this? And I was certainly getting sick of it. After you play that many shows, I feel like it's hard to do the music justice. We weren't spending enough time making new music. And we had 3 songwriters, and that gets weird over time. And we were trying the democracy thing. So I'd be like, I don't like that. I like this. Like, okay. Which works on some level, but not really always, doesn't always make, when you're compromising, that doesn't always make the best art. Though I think that our music was good and fun. I think we compromised a bit too much, probably, which was the end of the band, was our songwriters, Dave Andrews and Caleb Clotter and Kenny Ehrlich. They all wanted different stuff with their songs. They wanted different ideas. They didn't want it to be that instrumentation always, because you're limited by your orchestra. So anyway, that band broke up in, I guess officially in 2000. I think we might have played our last big show in 99, took a year off, and then played like one last show. And at this point, between tours, like I was working at the post office, sorting mail at Christmas time. Like I was like sick of being broke and I couldn't afford to live. Like I was like, you're on the road, say you make $12,000 a year, you owe $4,000 of that to the government because you got to pay all your self-employment tax. Of course, we get some earned income credit, but it was just like I was underwater. So started teaching piano lessons, which I had done some in the past. And that band broke up. I started working at a bookstore in Selwood and teaching music. and odd jobs cleaning houses. And I was feeling pretty happy about being home. Playing with Jerry some, opportunities would come up, and I got to go, do music with other people. Oh, and Louis Longmire. Like, as soon as Clover woke up, I was in Louis Longmire's band. He's a Laurel Thirst denizen. I don't know if you know him, but kind of country rock. And then Caleb had a solo project that I went on tour with him, with his solo project. That was sort of that weird period of like, I still want to do music, but I have to make money. But it was so fun. I'd missed it so much. So working with those guys was great. And then the bass player, Nate, from Colobo, had been in touch, I think he was doing a jazz jam or something, and met this guy, Ezra Holbrook, who now owns the Alberta Street pub. And Ezra had met this guy, Colin Malloy, and they'd hit it off, and they were sort of playing some music together. And so Ezra had invited Nate to play with them. So they kind of formed, Colin was not like, let's have an audition. He was like, great, let's be a band. So he and Ezra so Nate, Ezra, and Colin, and David Langenus, who is a local musician, he was sort of the first guitar player in that band, were the Decemberists. And my friend December, it's confusing, but she used to work for Colobo, and she still has her company, Siren Music, publicity company. She invited me to come see Colin play because she had known his old band Tarkio, since she had bands on the radar from being a publicist, and she just knew music. So anyway, Decca takes me, I call her Decca, to the Rabbit Hole, and we saw they weren't the Decemberists yet. I can't remember if they were called the Decemberists or if they were the December Brides. There was like a moment when the name was not set, and I liked it. I thought it was so weird and different. And I met Colin that night, and he was looking for an accordion player. And that accordion thing happened like back in the Colobo era, in the 90s, when, at the folk festivals and stuff, everyone's like around the campfire having a jam. And I'd just be like, I don't get to jam. I'm not really a great harmony singer, so I wanted to have an instrument that I could play. And so I ended up picking up a little concertina, which eventually I didn't want to do because it's too hard, and I picked up an accordion and started working on playing accordion. So I wasn't a very good accordion player when I met Colin, but he's like, you play accordion? I was like, yeah, totally, play accordion. So that first thing was Portland Film Festival was doing a show at the Medicine Hat. This is going to be like an old venue, memory lane. The Medicine Hat was a venue over on Alberta, and they were doing a silent film festival with local musicians making music behind the films. So Nate and Colin and I wrote a piece of music to accompany a short film. And I was like, that was a fun experience. I certainly don't want to go on the road, but this is fun to do music in town with this really creative person. And he was playing instrumental. I didn't know his lyrics, but he was like, do you want to be a Decemberist? And I was like, I don't want to go on the road. But then he's like, we're not going to go on the road. No one knows this music. So we started rehearsing once a week at my house, because I always had like the basement that had the rehearsal space. So that was like the first years of the Decemberists, which I think was like 99, maybe 2000. Like Colobo and the Decemberists overlapped a little bit. Because I remember Colin and Carson, his wife, coming to the last Colobo show. And they were like, I don't know if I like that. But they came, which was really nice. So that band started, and that was sort of that first year was more just experimenting, and we ended up getting a different guitar player. We got Chris Funk, and I had known Chris because he was friends with Ashley Flynn and played in her band. She's a Eugene folk artist, kind of country gal, and he played slide. So we invited him to play on our first EP as a sit-in guy. But then we ended up hiring him to be in the band. So then the band became Ezra, Colin, Chris, Nate, and I, 5 of us. And we ended up making, then right after that we started making the first record, Castaways and Cutouts. And that record got picked up by Kill Rock Stars. I mean, it got picked up by a record label called Hush Records first, from our friend Chad Crouch, who was a really great guy, but he didn't have the machine behind it that Kill Rock Stars had. They have the muscle. So as soon as Kill Rock Stars got a hold of that record, it was also the development of it was right at the confluence of the internet starting. So it was like 2001 or whatever, 2000, when there was like Pitchfork was starting and other online music magazines. People weren't really sharing music. There was a little bit of BitTorrent happening, but people were still buying records. It was kind of the perfect spot. People were listening to our music online, this magical internet, learning about us through these blogs, and then people were still buying CDs. So that first record just took off. It was like nothing I'd ever seen. I mean, different than Klobo, which was a slow, word-of-mouth, grassroots thing. This was like people who didn't know. We played a show in Pittsburgh, and people showed up. And there weren't anyone's cousins, you know? That was totally different. So that was good and surprising. So we were actually in the old Colobo van for those first tours, pulling the trailer. Well, first just the van, and then we had to pull the trailer. It was a really interesting transition going from a band like Colobo, which played like 2 to 3 hour shows with lots of improvisation, and everyone had their like unique identity on stage, kind of thing, kind of like not like a jazz band, but like a jam band. And the Decemberists were playing these like 45-minute or less shows, and it was very songwriting oriented. People liked it, but I felt different. I didn't feel as much of a part of it in a way because the songs were not as collaborative. You know, it was like the songwriter who's like, I have this idea. Okay, let's put the songs together. But it wasn't this like, musically it was really different for me. It was a good stretch because in the Colobo world, I kind of could do whatever I wanted. And people could say, no one ever said, don't do that. It was just this kind, loving, maybe too compromising of a musical situation. But the Decemberist was different. Colin has an idea of what he wants. And he'd be like, I think that's a little too much of that and too little of this. And that was new. And I was like, and this is when I came into all this music that I had missed. Like the Replacements. I mean, I was like, holy moly. Like Colin and Ezra at the time were, you know, their musical influences were different. Like I listened to R.E.M. For sure, and I listened to all their records and loved them dearly, but I never did the Husker Du, Guided by Voices, college rock music. This is that period of time I'd lost at the Grateful Dead's expense. No, because of the Grateful Dead. So I had this different aesthetic. So it was a little like a learning curve for me to be like, what are those guys really hearing? Because Ezra would be like, oh, like Steve Naim or whatever from, I think that's the guy's name, from Elvis Costello's band. I'm like, I have to go listen to that record. I don't have that record. We don't have the same musical background. So that was new to me. I was used to playing in a band with people that were we all listened to Bob Marley all the time, you know. I loved Brent, like, which Dead keyboardist did I like better, you know? So that was our conversations, you know? This was actually a wider perspective, actually. The Decemberists was like a wider group of influences. So my feelings there were, I was more uncomfortable. I was more trepidatious. I was more insecure. But I liked the music. I thought it was interesting. And I hadn't been a part of something that was that interesting for a while. So it was exciting. And plus Nate, bass player Nate, was there too. So that was a real comfort for me to be like, he's kind of my family, you know. We've been playing in a band for 10 years at that point. So, and then have the band getting some attention was good and bad, because I was like, oh, here we go again. I've done this before. it stresses me out a little bit. But I'm not opposed. I knew the drill. I had a van and a rehearsal space, and so we did it. And those tours started, and we were all working still, and they'd be like, okay, a 2-weeker in the spring, we'll take one off. I'll take work off, we'll do it. And then it started to be like, we need to do a real tour. Like, we need to, like, quit our jobs. And that was a big push for me. I was living in people's houses, but still afraid. I didn't want to come back with nothing in my pocket. That was really scary. And having to deal with critics and record labels, this was all new too, because in the global world, that was all us. It was just felt like such a warm fuzzy, you know? You're dealing with magazines and newspapers and then we were, after our third album with Kill Rock Stars, we decided to go hunting for, some other people in the band wanted to go for a major label. I'm like, that really freaked me out. I'm like, I don't want to be part of that giant machine. I don't want to be that. But it's, been like little baby steps up till then. So every time I get scared, I have to just like suck it up. And yeah. And the music got easier and our relationships all, change and ebb. And so that band's been together for 20 years. And we made our 8th record like 2 years ago. So that's been my longest term project. And after I quit working and we were just touring, I was able to do other things. So I played on a lot of people's albums. I played with Casey Neal, who is a folky, punky kind of guy. I played with him for years live and then played on his albums. Played with Ezra, the drummer. We had a jazz band, and then how many other bands? He was in Casey's band, and then I played with Little Sue, who is also a member of Casey's band. She has her own music. She's amazing. Recently just made a record with her for her new songs that just came out. Played with Jerry Joseph. Through all those years, Jerry was making records, and I'd get to come record songs with him. Yeah, I guess part of it is my style of person. Besides that, my chosen, hippie personality was, anti-establishment. I was like, we're gonna, go with those guys? They're gonna steal our money. They're gonna control our music. I don't know. I was very uncomfortable with it. And then, the big, LA, these places, we'd go to LA and we'd have dinners, and I was like, who's paying for this? Are we paying for this? Who's paying for this? And what are they going to do for us? And I didn't know, and I was, I was being naive, and I'm sure there was some reason for me to be, to have all those feelings. Something new. So, and it's true, ever since we've been on a major label, I feel like in my personal feelings, that I've had less control of my musical life because there's more people involved with well, we need to do this. We need to do this video. And this is your part in it. It's not like we sit around and decide these things. It's you're a part of this thing now. You're just a part of it. You're not it doesn't feel, there's more people involved and I feel like I'm less involved or something. Though I'm still involved in the music. It's just the machine is a lot bigger than I am. I don't even know. We were on Capitol. We couldn't have done picked a better label. Capitol, which is still, in terms of the big guys, is small. And we liked our people there, and it's still good. I'm just intimidated. I'm just a Portland girl who's a little afraid of the big record label guys and gals, just sort of intimidated by it all. But they let us do whatever we wanted. They wanted the Decemberist sound. They wanted us to do our thing, which was nice. So we did. And they let us do all kinds of crazy things. And we were like, we want you to print some vinyl. And they didn't agree to that till later, but, we've had our ups and downs, but the labels, but was great letting us do our concept record. Supported us in a lot of things, done some fun projects. The only, like, I've done some writing. I've done some, like, instrumental writing, and I've written movie music. So I've done some soundtrack stuff. I've done some podcast music. I wrote a bunch of songs for Facebook that, like, my first kind of foray into, like, songwriting, like, with a singing songwriting. I had 6 songs for them licensed, just, like, as a job. I thought that was a great way to, like, start writing songs, is to, like, just have someone, they just needed copyright-free material for people to use behind their videos and stuff, and they would give you sort of a template. We want this to sound like this. So it didn't feel, like, too personal. So I don't really feel like I'm going to write a solo Jenny record with me singing. I don't think I'm a good enough singer for that, but I do have an instrumental album, and I'm going to make another instrumental record, I'm sure. I just haven't done it yet. I'm working on that inspirato for that. Well, music's funny because you can do so much, and I've always done a lot of different things. But right now, I think of myself as a musician, though I do so many things. Like, I'm, like, writing arrangements. Like, I'm writing, like, for my accordion quartet, I'm writing a 4-piece accordion arrangement for a Bach fugue. And I'm a teacher. I'm an accordion and I'm a piano teacher. I write soundtrack music. I back people up. I've been doing a show with Jerry Joseph, like a live stream every week, where I'm, like, the musical host, and I, like, play some music, and then I play the theme song, and then I, like, you know, back him up and then play the theme song out, and I get to do that weird sort of stuff. And, well, it's weird because it's hard to find where the passion ends or begins, or the work is the work. So playing in bands is what I probably do best, because I have done it the longest. Though I feel when I am home, I want to play accordion, basically, and that's what I'll probably make, an accordion record. I've always loved instrumental music, and I listen to it a lot. Different people, I always love people's ideas, like, what are you listening to? Like, jazz music, classical music, contemporary classical music, soundtrack music, people's instrumental records. There's a new Dave Depper record out that just came out of him just playing these guitar, like, soundscapes, and I love that. Or, like, Brian Eno. So women in music, it's complicated for me since I grew up playing classical music, which was male dominated. Any music that we know of is male, except for a few pieces of music I played from contemporary composers, unlike Arletta O'Hearn, who's actually a local Portland composer, done some really cool jazz stuff. But so that's hard to. So female musicians, I always loved, like, Hart, and I loved, you know, that Anne, or I can't remember if Nancy plays bass, or that. It's really hard because growing up, I wasn't listening to women writers. I wasn't. I was listening to Led Zeppelin, and they were singing really misogynist lyrics, and I didn't care because I loved the guitar riffs. And so inspiration, I don't even like Madonna because I don't like pop music. So I'm not, like, a fan of bubblegum pop. I just am not. And I wish I knew more about, like, Queen Latifah and that 90s hip hop scene. I wish I did. I just didn't listen to it. Well, of course, I got to know, you know, later on, like, Nina Simone. Love her pianist. I love her piano playing. Marianne McPartland, amazing pianist. So I guess in jazz, there's a woman up in Seattle, Jessica, I forget her last name, and she's an amazing saxophone player. And she was leading her own band early on, so that in the 90s, and that was pretty cool. I think they were called the Living Daylights. So now I can think of more, like, amazing players that I'm really excited about. Like my friend Liz Chabukas, she's, like, this rock and lead guitar player. My friend Annalisa Tornfeld, her fiddle playing and singing is just my favorite. And so there's a lot of people that I can think of now, but in the 90s, I'm drawing a blank. And I get on my haunches about this because I get really, and I don't know where this is coming from, but like I get annoyed with like female only questions because I feel like it's just pigeonholing women even more. Yeah. And I just get really annoyed with it, and I know I shouldn't. I feel like at some point we're gonna get to a point where we can just be people, and not have to be like women in rock, women in this, men in that, people of like transgender. Okay, I just want to talk about people who play music, and I don't care if they're women or men. But I do care if men sing misogynist lyrics. I think that sucks. But and women have not done that. So I'm lacking in that part of the story. So like the girls' rock camp gave me this award, and I had to go do a speech. And I had this problem with the same problem. I get kind of angry. And I'm like, why can't it just be rock camp? And why can't everyone do it? And why can't people just be a girl that plays music and not a girl that plays music? A person that plays music and not a girl that plays music. Pisses me off. But then I was like, okay, I made the speech about like women's side players. That's the thing that people don't think about. And I can only kind of use the 90s and the aughts as like examples of like people like Janet Weiss, I had a whole list of them, of course, when I was doing the speech, but there's this woman named Annie. She plays bass out of Nashville. She's got this amazing style. And this gal named Jennifer plays with Natalie Merchant and Rachel Blumberg. There's just a lot of great women's side players now. When I said I'm not the main singer, people who like are gigger, like they're the side guy. And my side guy friends that are girls, we call ourselves side guys because we use the masculine to be like, I'm just one of the guys. I'm just the side guy. I'm not going to be your lady keyboard player. I'm just your keyboard player. So that's a weird question, and I know that a lot of my friends have different views on this. But like I've seen like Nico Case, I follow her on Twitter, and she'll be like, if I get asked to be in an all-women tribute night again, I'm gonna fucking kill somebody. And I'm like, I get you, girl. I hear you. I feel you. It makes me mad. And I also think we need to do it. Which is, if we didn't do that, like how could we do that different? Like could we just, instead of being like, we're gonna have all-women night, what if you just invited more women to the thing? And then it would just feel more normal instead of being like, okay, now we're gonna do an all-women, I'm giving an example of like the Dylan tribute or whatever. It's gonna be all women this time. Like, can't you just ask more women to do it and not have it be this thing? Then everyone's uncomfortable. Or maybe they're not, I don't know. Musically, well, I always like to play some Bach Prelude and Fugues. I've been working on the D minor one. That's like my little fun thing. And like studying, I've been playing a lot of tangos on my accordion. Hope to write one soon, write my own tango. Writing music for me is a little bit more of a struggle. Like I have to have an assignment to do it, or otherwise I won't do it. Passion projects I have outside of music are like going into the woods. I love plants. I'm a big gardener. I have family property out in Eastern Oregon. My dad's from Eastern Oregon, and I've been helping with some ideas about how to manage it and, getting deeper into that world. Sometimes I just got to get out of the music head for a while. When music becomes your job, it gets less. I still want to play, but I don't always want to like spend a bunch of time. My brain just needs to get outside and look at trees, I guess. So I think my next record might be something inspired by trees. Maybe try to blend those two things together. Playing with other people, I think part of it is that it's not, keyboardists and especially accordionists are not a dime a dozen. There's just less of us than there are guitar players. So I get asked to do a lot of sessions. Like Larry Crane up at Jackpot invites me to do a lot of stuff. And I'm pretty much a yes girl. So I will like, if you're like, can you play in my band? I'll be like, okay. So I've been playing with Scott McCoy, who he is in a band called the Young Fresh Fellows, who's very popular. Who's from Seattle, and I'm in his band, the -5, which is his solo material, which is so much fun. And in his band, I've learned his aesthetic, which is kind of this like rock, like NRBQ style, sassy rock. And he was in REM, the traveling REM group. So Peter Buck's in that band too, which has been fun to get to know him and his crazy life of music and his interesting perspective on things. And I mean, of course, I love REM, so it's fun to be part of that world. So that's been a really fun thing to do, besides playing with Jerry every week, which has been really fun, and playing on Jerry's records. And my husband is my husband's a drummer, plays drums with Jerry Joseph, and also is a recording engineer. And we have built a studio at our house called The Panther, and he's been recording records, and he recorded his own record, and it just came out 2 days ago. So it's called Axiom, and it's really, really rich and thick and very heartfelt. So I'm really proud of him. So I played on his album. Our house is full of keyboards. We have a Hammond, a piano, we've got Wurlitzer, synthesizers. It's just insane. Yeah, I think that playing music outside of my main gig, the Decemberist, is really important for my brain. Every band I play with that's not the Decemberist does something for me. Like Scott McCoy, first of all, he's just like, whatever you want to do is fine. And he loves, his favorite band's NRBQ, I'm pretty sure. And Terry Adams is the keyboardist, and he's a ripping keyboardist, but he's also the guy who will sit on his piano and bang it. And so that's so free. When I play with Scott, with the -5, with this feeling, I always feel like this sense of freedom afterwards. Like I do it for what I call joy of music, which can be a little tongue-in-cheek, but really it is. It's like, if I just want to play, like the longer solo I play, the better and the louder it is. Which is, in the Decemberist, that's more of a controlled thing. Everything's pretty written out. By the time we're on tour, the songs are like dialed in. The same with Jerry, which is Jerry Joseph. He has quite a penchant for elongated instrumental sections. And he looks at me, and he just lets me go. And then I can get loud, and then he'll join me, and then he'll keep going, and it's like I get to play these solos, and the audience loves that part of the show, and that feels free in its own way too. And then my friend Little Sue, when I play in her band, I get to work on my like ragtime country piano skills, because I'm always having to like pull back the tempo, find some bluesy licks that can fit right in her nice like cadence. Like she's got this really laid back style that's twangy, and so I've learned a lot playing with her too. And plus her music catalog is insane. Just the ones that she's written, plus all the covers she knows. She's like, let's play a Harry Nilsson cover. I'm like, that's a jam buster. And a jam buster is, when you have a song that has like 17 chords and the time signature changes 3 times. But it's like, yeah, okay. We do some Elton John, these big piano songs. She's like, you can do it. So I think without those other influences, my musical band life would be less fun. But I think that having all of those people help my Decemberists musicianship improve. Like my friend Ashley Flynn, I'm in the band with her too. Sounds like I'm in a lot of bands, which I am, but I'm working on it. Okay, and she wants me to rock out as hard as possible. Also, no holds barred, just go for it. And it's like, I get a pass to do anything. So these are all like little bits of therapy, I guess, each band is. And it's fun. And yeah, it doesn't pay very well, but you get a free beer and you get to play with your friends, and that's how I see all my friends. I think being on stage with other people is unique in that you're all sort of on the spot together. So you all have that heightened energy of like, people are looking at us and we're doing this thing and we're all doing this together. Like, and we're nicer to each other on stage. We'll be like, da-da-da. Like, I don't know. It just feels like you're putting on a show. And also there's this unique, like you're all in this together and you're all afraid together and you're all excited together. And that's a pretty unique experience in life. I still like to think about music as like one of the purest creations that human beings have made. It's like, it doesn't pollute the environment. It doesn't like, to make music doesn't cost any money. It doesn't hurt the animals. I just think of it as this weird, isn't it weird? Like, what else is like that? Art, maybe like dancing. Yeah, that's interesting, because I played in Colombo and the Decemberists, both kind of in the same like level of touring for a while, and then the Decemberists sort of took, when we jumped to Capitol, things shifted, and the amount of publicity and all these things, it changed. So we were playing places that I never thought I'd play. Like, for me, like playing the Arlington Minster Concert Hall here in Portland was huge, and it was scary and exciting. I felt very proud. I felt like my parents who were there were proud, and I get nervous in those big venues though. Like, we played the Hollywood Bowl, and I didn't eat all day. I just could not. It was so exciting, but whoa. Or like Radio City, I had the same problems there. But it's great. I think sometimes fear makes you play better, because you just have to focus in. And I also felt like we were like representing Portland, kind of. And that was kind of fun to be like Portland indie band playing Radio City Music Hall. Look at us with our backdrop and stuff. And yeah, The King is Dead, which came out like 10 years ago, like last week, it had a little birthday. That was our best-selling record. We actually got a gold record for that, which was exciting. I'm like, we did? Do people even buy records anymore? But I'm glad they did. So it went gold, and Down by the Water, I think, was the song that got all the radio play. And yeah, it's wild to hear your song on the radio, especially when it's not like, I mean, and I love KBOO, but it's not KBOO. It's like XRT in Chicago, you know? It's like wild. So I never thought that I would hear myself playing accordion on the radio, and we went to the Grammys for that song, for Down by the Water, and I'm like, oh my God, if we win, we might be the only band to win Best Rock Song that has an accordion as the lead instrument. I thought that would be a fun first to be a part of. But the Foo Fighters win, you know, they're good at music too, I guess. So it was funny because my husband was like, he wore, he was going to wear a Slayer shirt and a blazer, but he didn't. Last minute, he put on a regular shirt, and Dave Grohl wore a Slayer shirt and a blazer at the Grammys. Well, because he could do that. So yeah, it's wild being a Portland girl that's done all that stuff, been to the Grammys and dressed up and rubbed elbows with, I saw like Herbie Hancock at a party, and I'm like, I must go find Herbie, but thank God I didn't, because I was kind of drunk and I probably would have made an absolute fool of myself. But probably back, like, our record Picaresque, I think 16 Military Wives had been played on like Kink and stuff, and I was like, that was so exciting. That was really exciting. I remember I heard a Colombo song in Safeway once in Corvallis, and I was like, oh my God, we're at Safeway. It's all the things that you think about, like you grow up and you're like, Bob Dylan's on the radio. I'm like, I can't believe our music's on the radio. So when it's, you get kind of a little bit more numbed to it over time. It's always the same couple songs that they play, but I'm always grateful to people who play us, because I feel like we're still, or any of the music I've been involved in, I feel really happy about people still liking.